Oh, thank you. Hey, good morning. Oh, get your notebooks out because I'm going to give you scripture. You got to yell, wait. Oh, my. Of course. Of course you would. Wait. And the verses are. It can't happen. Please. All right. Ready? Let's go. Come on. How long does it take to get a piece of paper and a pen out? All right, I got you. All right, here we go. John 4, chapter 4. John 4, verses 1 through 26. It's a story. And then Hebrews 10, 19. So 10, verses 19 through 23. Got it? How well do you deal with distractions? Anybody? I already told you that you have kids that'll change your life. So when our kids, in fact, this was just literally happening 30 seconds ago, 60 seconds ago. And I actually enjoyed that interruption. I sit back there. Oliver came in, and he said, Dad, I want to stand here. I'm like, okay, great. And the game was going on, and he's asking me questions, and I'm looking at my notes, and he's like, what's this, what this? And so I'm trying to interact and try to just look over my notes one more time, and then worship started, and he's asking questions about the song, and I want to worship, and I want to sing along during worship, but he's asking questions because he's 8 and he doesn't understand, so I'm answering those questions, and I'm like, and I said, hey, buddy, on the third song, I'm going to go sit in that chair up there. Why don't you go over and sit with Mom? But I want to sit with you. I said, okay, that's fine. And that last song just started, which I love that song. And then we come over, and I set my stuff down, and I'm standing, and I hold his hand and start to sing. And he goes, Dad, why can't we just sit? Okay, we'll sit. So I sit, and he sits in my lap. Do you ever have those kind of disruptions? Where it's like you're trying to do one thing, and then there's another thing? In fact, being a parent is like, especially when kids are little and when you all were little, maybe you still do this, I don't know. But I'm going to talk about Levi. Is Levi in the room, Lori? Oh, good, then I can talk about him. Just don't tell him. You can. He'll probably give me a look. He also tells me I owe him money. So, Levi is 10. He's our second son. And out of the 4, they're all unique in their own ways. Levi is very verbal. Anybody in your family like that? They're just quick. Some of you are like, yeah, it's me. I'm the guy. I'm the girl. I'm the one. Levi's always been very verbal. I mean, from a very young, I don't know, it was like a year to year and a half. He was already like talking. And there would be times as a parent where you're looking to just get a little rest. You're looking to just close your eyes. You know you're probably not going to nap because there's no way that you're going to be able to fall asleep unless you are that exhausted. But you're often kind of looking for spots, moments, anywhere throughout the day or the evening that you could like steal away and get a moment. And that might even be the very first thing in the morning. You're trying to sleep in. But with Levi, so if Levi was 2 and already very verbal, so Ethan would have been 5 at that point. So we've got 2 little kids in the house. And often what would happen is I'd be laying in bed. You know, it'd be like 6 in the morning. I ain't ready to get up yet. So I'm laying and I'm sleeping. And I get this, Dad. Good morning. Get up. Buddy, I'm not ready to get up. You get up. He doesn't have a lot of words. And the little one laughing, Oliver's laughing because he knows what this is like. But Levi's 2. Get up. Buddy, I'm not ready to get up. Is there something you need? Cereal. You get me cereal. Can you give me 2 minutes? No! 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. And he walks off in his little 2-year-old proud self. He just told Dad. And I'm laying there going, sucker doesn't know how to count. 5 minutes, good, I got 5 minutes. And then he can't tell time either because it was 20 minutes later that he'd come back and I was totally out. Dad, whack. What, buddy? Good morning. Get up, and we'd start this whole thing over. What do you need? Cereal. Okay, I'll get up and I'll go help him. And it's just like the joy and the strain of disruptions. Like the joy is to be able to, yes, I want to be there, I want to help you. And there are so many things going on. It's not just your needs, little one. There is everyone else in the house's needs. There's work needs. I mean, there's my needs. There's all these things going on. And sometimes we handle disruptions well, and sometimes we don't. But there is always something pulling at us. So I'm going to ask you this. How much control do you have over your disruptions? I want you to be honest about that. When you turn to your neighbor, we're going to do a quick scale, 1 to 10. 10, you have absolute control over all of the disruptions and things in your life. 1, you have no control. Like you are given to the disruption. So I want you to think in the answer for yourself in that question, how much control do I have over the disruptions in my life? I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to tell them that number. And just out of curiosity, anyone in here, just by show of hands, anyone have, they would say they are like somewhere between an 8 and a 10. Like you have pretty good control over the disruptions in your life. Anybody saying they're about an 8 to a 10? Anybody got 1? All right. Anybody say they're probably like a 5 to a 7? Somewhere 5 to a 7. Okay. All right. Yeah, you kind of go back and forth, control. Okay. How about a 3 to a 4? We're saying we got less control over the amount of disruptions and how we handle those things. All right, anybody a 1 to a 2? Like when it happens, when it interrupts, you're probably like, you're on it. All right, okay. Let's ante up a little bit. When your device dings, turn to the person next to you and say, when this makes the sound or the vibration that it makes, what is the first inclination? What is it you do? Okay? All right? Let's get a little clarity on it. Let's get a little clarity on this. How many of you, by show of hands, would say, if that thing makes a noise, vibrates, or something, you're going to check it? Anybody? Show of hands. If it makes a noise, if it indicates, you're going to check it. How many of you go past checking it and move to getting into it? Like checking is just this. Getting into it is opening it up and then getting into it even further. How many of you go the next step and you get into it? Right away, we're talking immediately. This thing dings, you're checking, you're getting into it. How many of you respond immediately? It's a what? Depends on who it is. How many of you are more likely to respond right away? If it's your mother, you what? You will. I thought you said if it's your mother, I don't. Oh, I'm going to be like, we got to talk. She's like, it's Mom. Out of all the disruptions in your life, what I want you to really consider, though, is this. How tethered, you know what I mean by tethered? Tied, roped to, tethered to all of the things that are constantly pulling and taking at your time. Because it's never just information. It's never just a content thing. Often it's content that is connected to who you are, or saying who you are, or making you think about who you are or who you're not. There is content and disruptions that are constantly pulling at you. Like I'll go back to even with the boys, and when they disrupt what I'm trying to do in a moment. And if I don't attend, like even to tell Levi, give me 2 minutes, like give me 5, like there can be a sense of like, I'm not a good dad. You know, I could be later in the day, I should have gotten up. Oh man, I'm not. And the same thing is true that every time we get into something or we see something, I mean, the majority of the time what I hear is when I ask the question, especially what I find interesting, when I'm sitting with somebody in my clinical space, in my office, I have had people, I mean, get this, I have had people, their phone rings, they're in a therapist's office, and their device goes off and they go, hang on just a sec. And they take a phone call, or they start texting right there. And I just sit there and I find that really interesting. You have a real difficult time being present to this moment because you are so tethered to who or to what. And as soon as that bell rings, you are right on it. And what we don't often realize is that being so tethered to all of the distractions keeps us from being able to be present to any given moment. That's why the last 2 days, when you, the gentleman first and the ladies the next day, when you went off and you had a quiet time, and the first thing that we were talking about before you went out was this: it's going to be restless for you to put this aside, to get away from all of the things, and to enter into a time of quiet rest with Jesus, who we say we trust and we believe and that we want to guide our life, that we want to find our identity from. But to pause and get away feels too restless. And the reason that is we have become so accustomed. It has become so normal to become Pavlov's dogs. And if you don't know who that is, it's a guy who did this study on dogs for a long time. Basically what he did is he started getting these animals to be in a hunger state, and he wouldn't feed them, but he'd ring a bell, and that would alert them. And every time they'd ring a bell, then eventually he'd ring the bell and food would come out, until the point where he could ring a bell and they would come running. The bell was this thing. I got to go get, and I got to go get. We do the same things. We become trained to all of the distractions, and they keep us tethered and moving and pulled in all these different directions. Who's doing this and what I should wear and how I should look and whatever it is, and I am constantly being pulled. And the idea of finding rest in this world sounds impossible. And yet, it is the offering, it is the gift of God. There is this thing called Sabbath. Anybody know what a Sabbath is? Anybody? What is it?
It's like one of the days of the week, like pretty sure it's like Sunday or Saturday.
Okay. You're on it. You're on it. Yeah. The day of rest. How many of you have a day of rest? But what does a day of rest look like? Often what we do is we say, all right, Sunday's going to be the day of rest. For us, Sunday's a day of rest. In the Jewish culture, it is Friday, sundown on Friday until sundown on Saturday. In a lot of Christian culture, we say, all right, Sunday is our day. And so we're busy and busy and busy all the days of the week. We get to Sunday, but really what Sunday is it's filled with, we might go to church, but we're going to binge watch something. We're going to be staring at the TV, and we're going to be doing things with our friends. We're going to be doing all these other things. In fact, we're not really resting. We're just not at school. Or we're just not at work, but we're actually still shopping and still binging and still doing all these things. We're actually still tethered to all these other things. And the number of times that I get to have conversations with people and about their devices. In fact, I got into a conversation with this one parent talking about their student. And I said, your student could really use a better rhythm to their life. At least a better bedtime rhythm, because what we got going on here is really not helping what that kid is living with. And so we started talking about, what if we take an hour before bedtime to just shut everything down? And what if we do something different that is just not engaging, and it's not this artificial light, and we could do something that would actually cause the body and the brain and everything to just start slowing down, and maybe we'll start moving into a better bedtime. And if we got a better bedtime, maybe we'll have a better sleep throughout the night. And if we got a better sleep throughout the night, we've got a better rest. And when we got a better rest, we got better energy, and our attitude and everything is a bit better for the next day. And this parent says to me, "That's stupid." Interesting comment. Okay, why is that stupid? Because I'm on my phone all the time and I fall asleep just fine. Okay, so I'm going to throw a little science into the conversation. Well, I'm only bringing it up because, what we understand about the brain and how it works and the blue light and everything, and it actually causes the light from our phones, even though it gets shaded in different hues and things like that, it still causes our brain to go be awake. And in doing that, that's actually telling our bodies to not rest. That's stupid. Because I can be on my phone and this parent grab their phone. This is the conversation between me and the parent about the kid. Grabs their phone. I look at my phone and I can be on it and I can fall right to sleep. And my question was this: are you actually resting, or is your body shutting down because it is completely exhausted? Because there's two very different things. To crash is not resting. Crashing is because you've gone to the umpteenth level and your body and your brain can't take it anymore, and you are now exhausted and you're crashing, and that might not even give you the rest because of the amount of time it takes your brain to actually settle, even though your body's asleep. But if we actually do the work of understanding how God wired us up, and to look at, He has actually established and created a gift that He has always, and continues to offer us. It is Sabbath. It is rest. And Sabbath is this: it is to shut out the noise of all the things. Think about what your maybe slightly restless 45 minutes was yesterday. Think about what it's been. For some of you, you get to camp. The difference of being at camp during this week and not being at home, think about the things that you've been tethered to normally at home that aren't here. Some of you haven't been on your devices or have been on it very little, and you're like, man, if I stop to think about that, that actually feels something's different. There is something about being in a space like this. I'm outside a lot. I'm around people we're talking about God. We're talking about living for Jesus. We're actually talking about real things, and we're opening up with each other. And there's this thing happening that doesn't really happen at home. And when Matt said, today's the last day, for some of you, the first thing that you thought of was all the tethers, all the things. And I already said this, and I'll say it again, that you are always in a state of forming. The question is, who or what is forming you? And are you a part of the process? Are you allowing God to be a part of the forming process in your life? See, when God created everything, it says he created everything in 6 days, and on the seventh day, God rested, and he called that day holy, and it was good, and it was a Sabbath. It was a day of rest. And God created the Sabbath, Jesus said, for mankind. God created it for us because he knows how he made us. He wants us to work, and he wants us to do good things and grow and stretch and all those things, and also to remember we aren't him. And when we have a day of rest where we disconnect from all the things and we have time where we step away, we do it as a means of going to our Father, going to God and going, God, I want to rest in you. Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I mean, think about it, to have some time where you can sit back and you have no responsibilities except to rest and to delight in the love and the life of God, in all that he's given you, to sit out and just bask in creation that God made and just remember and think about how good God is. That is you going up and going, God, I want to spend time with you. And God will never say, give me 2 minutes. Because the reality is God's already established it, and he's going, I'm right here. I'm waiting. Come be with me. But you have to take responsibility for it because nobody else will. Nobody else is going to take responsibility for your relationship with Christ. Everything else will pull you in the other direction because they've got things they want for you or from you or you to do or you to be and all these things. And man, what is it like when you get to sit and rest in the arms of God and just go, I can rest knowing, God, that you are absolutely in control. This week has been all these things. This has been all this. In fact, it makes me think about the story of Jesus speaking to the woman at the well. And so if you want, turn to it. Otherwise, just listen, because in John 4, it's this story. When Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard he was making and baptizing more disciples than John, though Jesus himself was not baptizing, but the disciples were, he left Judea and went again to Galilee. He had to travel through Samaria, so he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the property that Jacob had given his son Joseph. Samaria, Samaritans, those people. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, worn out from his journey, sat down at the well, and it was about noon. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Give me a drink, Jesus said to her, because his disciples had gone into town to buy food. How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered, if you knew the gift of God who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would actually ask him, and he would give you living water. Sir, said the woman, you don't even have a bucket, and the well is deep. So where do you get this quote-unquote living water? You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? He gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock. Jesus said, everyone who drinks from this water will get thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never get thirsty again. In fact, the water that I give him will become a well of water springing up in him for eternal life. Sir, said the woman, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and come back here to draw water. Go call your husband, he told her, and then come back. I don't have a husband, she answered. You have correctly said, I don't have a husband, Jesus said. For you have had 5 husbands, And the man you are now with is not your husband. What you have said is true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews say that the place to worship is in Jerusalem." I love that she changes what he just said. He's speaking about her life, and she changes the direction of the conversation. So Jesus said, "Believe me, woman, in an hour is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know because salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. Yes, the Father wants such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." And the woman said to him, I know the Messiah is coming, who is called the Christ. And when he comes, he will explain everything to us." And Jesus told her, "I, the one speaking to you, am he." And just then the disciples arrived, and they were amazed that he was talking with a woman. Yet no one dared to say, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking to her?" Then the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the people, "Come, see the man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They left town and made their way to him. What happens when we meet with Jesus? This woman had no idea that when she went to draw water at the highest, hottest point of the day, that she was going to come into face-to-face contact with Christ. She had no idea. And yet when she does, she is first affronted by the fact that this Jewish rabbi man would speak to her, a woman who is a Samaritan. She's affronted, taken aback. "Why are you talking to me?" And sometimes you and I have that same interaction with Jesus because we look at ourselves and we say, it's a thing that keeps us from actually going to spend time with Jesus. Because there's something we've done, there's a sin that we've been participating in, and we feel ashamed, and we feel disgusting, and we think, God doesn't want to see me, he doesn't want to talk to me. And the reality is that isn't true. It's shame, it's a lie that's keeping you tethered away from Jesus, because Jesus' arms are always open. And his invitation to you always is, "Come to me." And then the next part of the conversation is about living water and going back and forth. And I love this idea that they have this dialogue, almost like not an argument, but it's a robust conversation where it's going, "Yeah, but you say, but you hear," and Jesus is gently correcting. And how often do you and I need the words of Christ to correct us, to overcome our shame, to overcome our doubts, to calm our tension? And Jesus invites us to rest with him, to make space for him. Because like any relationship, we have to make time for it. And then it moves to a point where Jesus asks her a question and she gives an answer, but it's not the full answer. And Jesus tells her everything about her life because he knows all of it. And he does not condemn her, but he calls her out. He's showing her that he is the living water, that if you take him in, it will spring up in you and become this living water that will come out of you, to the point where she must have been so excited that she runs to town and tells everybody. And what if you began to make space for Christ, to spend time with God? I am not saying just go read your Bible and be done. No, we read the Bible to connect with the one who spoke it. We pray in order to talk with the one who gave us our own breath. Because when we go and we sit with Jesus, we don't have to hide. We can open up all the good, the bad, the ugly, the joy, the sorrow, everything. We can give it to Jesus, and he says, I will take it. I will hold you, and I will give you what you need. I am with you, and I am for you. Shut out the noise and hear my whisper. That is an invitation to you. It is an invitation to create better rhythms in your days. That what you do here at camp in some small ways, you could actually start doing in your own ways. Brother Lawrence lived in a monastery. He wrote a book called Practicing the Presence of God. And basically what he talked about living in a monastery is this, that in everything that he did, he used his imagination to picture Christ actually with him. And so he talked with Jesus while he was cutting carrots. He was talking with God as he tended to the garden. He was talking with Jesus and thinking and asking questions because, Jesus, you are a carpenter. God, would you help me to understand how to do and how to make and how to understand this problem so that I can make it right or do it well? I mean, what if we lived in such a way that we literally tried and strived to walk with God every day? But the first thing we have to do is we have to work at shutting out the noise. And I know that when I say this, this causes attention. What if you don't respond right away? Yes, the other person is probably going to be like, the heck? I texted you like 400 times 30 seconds ago and you haven't responded. Not my problem. Maybe you need to get untethered. Now, we don't need to be that curt with people, but maybe we do. But at a point, we can say, look, I'm going to shut my device off. I'm going to shut it down. Literally turn it off. Because in the next 30 minutes, the next hour, the next full day, all I want to do is I want to be free from the noise. And I want to rest and delight in God's presence and understanding and relishing the fact that God is God. And God knows me. He knows every part of my story. And what I want you to do in your groups is I want you to talk about what would that look like? What are the things that are hard for you to disconnect from? And how? What are some actual tangible ways for you to disconnect? But you can't just say no to something. You have to replace it with something else. And so then it becomes a question of, so then what are you going to do to allow Jesus to speak into your life every day? So that the living water will fill up in you every day and that it will spill out of you every day. And that when you fall and when you mess up, you will go to the one who loves you, the one who died for you, the one who can restore and heal and forgive you, and find that life again and get back up and keep going. I'll end it with this. My wife did this in 2019 as COVID began to hit. And the world was shutting down. My wife shut even more people out by doing this, which I thought at first was ridiculous. And now I go, brilliant. First thing she did was she hit settings on her phone and made it go black and white so that her phone was always in a monochrome state. Do you know how boring that is? You don't even want to look at it when it's in monochrome. You start to search for something, you're like, your body and your brain goes, no thanks. But if that's what you got to do, put it in monochrome. But then the next thing that she did, she turned off absolutely every notification. Her phone does not buzz, ding at all unless it's a phone call. And the only time that she goes to check the socials, her email or something is when she wants to. And do you know how annoying that is for family members who are calling or texting? And when she started that the first month, do you know how many phone calls and texts I would get? Where's your wife? Why are they texting me? Where are you? Oh, she's sitting next to me. Why isn't she answering her phone? This is going to be good. She shut it off. It's not you, it's her. I don't like, but then people got upset and all this thing. You know what she did? She stayed with it. Do you know what year we're in right now? 2024. She still has all the same settings. And I still look at it and I go, kudos to you. It's something I look at and I go, oh man, I do that. I need to do that every so often. We have to do it in different ways. What she does, I can't do that fully. It has to look a little bit differently for me, and so we got to work these things out, but we do. All I want to do is give you some ideas because I want you to know you can continue to form into the person that Christ has desired and made you to be, but you have to be a part of the process and getting untethered from all the distractions and being only tethered to Christ is one of the best things and one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. So my question to you is this: what are you going to do? Pray with me. Jesus, thank you that you constantly are arms wide open to us. God, you know all of the dynamics, all of the devices, all of the things. And we know that you are greater than them. And some of these things feel pretty heavy, but we ask that you help us to create a better rhythm in our days, to find space, to make space, to be with you, and that in doing so, we actually find you, our life, and that your life would well up in us and become a part of who we are, that we would continue to grow in who you desire us to be. So Jesus, as we have these real honest conversations, would you guide them and lead them and help us to do what we need to do? In your name, amen. Go in peace.